Hello and welcome to today's Founder Insight Series. I'm here with Rod Bishop, founder of Jayride. How are you, Rod?
Doing well, Rob. Good to be here.
Fantastic. Yeah, great to see you today. Rod and I used to work together going back probably 14 years ago now. I think we worked it out to be, didn't we, Rod?
Yeah, a little while now.
Been a little while. And you've done just a little bit in that time. Jayride was founded about 12 years ago and is an ASX listed company and was recently listed as one of the top 10 fastest growth companies by the AFR. So Rod definitely has some bragging rights there that he can talk about whilst no longer being the MD. He's certainly been along the journey for a long time and has a lot to share. So, Rod, I think one question probably to get us started today is
Hmm.
going back 12 years ago, those first couple of years, uh, they're the most informative and pivotal when it comes to any startup. What were some of the key sort of challenges that you faced in that time, and how did you go about overcoming those?
Yeah, of course. So look, in the early days, Jayride did kind of a much more expanded scope than what we do today. The Jayride that's listed on the ASX, where I'm a non-executive director, helps travelers to find and book their rides around the world. And that was the same kind of catchphrase as what we started with. But one of the kind of funny things about that as a vision statement is it's quite all-encompassing, right? Travelers, they need all sorts of stuff. And so it's a very, very broad actual pitch when you get down to it. Today, what we do is we do a subset, right? We do specifically focus on booking door-to-door rides. But in the early days of Jayride, we understood the travelers needed to get around. Didn't know particularly how they wanted to get around. And so we covered it all. When you ask anybody who knows that kind of early Jayride story, it's funny because we did it all. And different things resonated in different ways. So people know early Jayride as being all about rideshare. And this is rideshare before it was cool. This is before Uber and Lyft kind of co-opted the name. This is, actual people actually traveling together, hitchhiking, essentially, right? You also had the door-to-door rides that we do today. You also had long-distance bus and coach. You also had free rental car relocations, of all things. Rental car companies need to move surplus capacity from city to another, and they'll let you have the car for free. Now, the funny thing about that is we launched all of these things and everyone knew us as the ride sharing company. But all of the traffic came for free rental cars because what a pitch. And when we're looking at the actual data, all of the potential transactions were happening on the door-to-door airport rides. And so it was, that first couple of years was really a process of discovery. We launched very broad. And then when we saw what worked, that's where we focused. And so we refined our go-to-market over time. So I'd say that first challenge was finding out what's sticky. Right? And our approach to that was launching a whole bunch of stuff, and then the thing that stuck, really identifying this is where the money is to be made, do that. The second thing, I think, again, just an early challenge, is just making sure that you're solving your biggest problem first. There's all sorts of different problems that you can go about solving when you're working on your startup. And the catch cry, I think, the thing that I would take away is always find your riskiest assumption. And that's the thing to solve first. And so, for example, Jayride, it's a marketplace. It's not a risky assumption to run a tomorrow marketplace. There's many other marketplaces. There's whole playbooks on how to do marketplaces. Therefore, it doesn't need to validate it. Put a pin in that for now. What's actually risky here? And the thing that we found was actually a technology problem. That the actual information of transport being aggregated into a specific way that then could be distributed was a technical problem that had never previously been solved. Go back 12 years, I mean, maps on the internet was still new, right? The original pitch of Uber was taxis on a map. Like, that was revolutionary, right? And so this sort of technology it was fledgling, and we had to demonstrate that it could work. And so again, thinking about go-to-market, thinking about those early challenges, launching the technology solution before really kind of worrying too much about how to monetize, how to transact, how to run a marketplace, these sorts of things, just proving that the functionality worked was the riskiest assumption. Now, you might have a different riskiest assumption in some other business you're looking at. That's fine. Could be go-to-market strategy. That doesn't matter what it is, but be focused and subordinate everything to proving out that one riskiest thing.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's really good advice. There are a couple of themes there that I picked up on. So you started out quite broad, and then you actually really kept an eye on the data. I think that's a really key point there is really staying on top of utilization, what were people engaging with, and then honing in on what was resonating the most, what were people utilizing Jayride for, and doubling down on that. And I think that's a really strong tip for founders out there, is just keep an eye on what's going on, and market validation, utilizing your solution to continually validating and learning and building and making sure that you're focusing on the right things and solving. I think you put it as validating the riskiest assumption, or solving the biggest problem for what your users are doing. So some really good tips there. And what were some of the things? I mean, starting from a broad solution and then refining your scope, what was the impact of that on both yourself but also your customers, and how did you manage that process?
Important to always focus on the right measures. So you might say the measures that matter, because you can measure anything. And so, for example, if we had been focused on traffic, then we'd still be running a free rental cars operation. Now, the problem with that business is there's lots and lots of traffic. Everybody wants this thing, but there's precious little inventory because it's almost never available. So you can't actually run a company there, but you could get a lot of website traffic. And so I think at least part of it is making sure that you know what measures matter. And so again, for Jay, we knew that Jay was going to go on to become a marketplaces business with transactional revenues. And so the measure that mattered was not traffic and not, media mentions of our ride shares. It was where the transaction is going to take place. Are there actually going to be transactions on this? Is there available inventory? Are there people buying it? What's the likelihood that those transactions, when we launch them, will stick? That travelers will actually get service, and so on and so forth. And so long as you keep your eyes there and really, again, subordinate all other concerns to that one concern, then as you chip away other parts of the business, you'll find other vanity metrics dropping away. Right? You get rid of your free rental cars, suddenly your traffic drops, but you know that you don't care because your transactions went up, and that's where you're focused. And so again, just being a slave to that focus and being ruthless about that one focus area.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think a saying that aligns with what you said there is, the numbers don't lie, but they don't tell the full story. And if you're looking at the wrong numbers, then they may look good, but they're not delivering the outcome that you want. So make sure, you said measure what matters, make sure that you're measuring what is important in terms of the outcome you're trying to deliver. So I think that's another very solid piece of advice. So you've gone through those first couple of years in terms of the business, and you've got that growth. You've honed in on what's important and what you want to deliver. You're now in that scale up zone. How did you go from a startup to a scale up and eventually one of the fastest growing companies in Australia?
It's going to sound corny, but it's listening to your customers. The thing that we were doing was working in Australia and New Zealand, and then we rolled out UK and US, and it mostly worked. And you have localization issues as you go, and we thought, okay, there's a business here. This is really interesting. We came across along the way that travel buyers wanted to buy this stuff. And so, okay, well, how do we sell it to them? What is it we need? What is it they want to buy? And so you go, to the small end of town, and the small end of town is buying, and you increasingly go to a bigger and bigger end of town, and you eventually end up at the biggest end of town, the largest online travel agencies in the world. And you say, guys, what is it that you need? And they say, oh, well, this is really interesting because we don't have any solution that looks like this at the moment, but unfortunately, it's only in 5 countries, and we operate in all of them, and we don't have any other solution. So if we implemented your solution in 5 countries, what are we going to do for the rest of the world? So sorry, it's just too hard for us to think about that problem. So the answer is no, see you later. So here's, potential very large customer, one of many, saying very clearly, no, but. And if you missed it, the but, right? Like the but is the most important thing. The no but is, You can reframe it. You say yes, and only if you're a global company with global distribution. And so that's what we set about doing. And so that's kind of circa 2017. We got from founding in 2012 up to listing in 2018. We ran that course in 6 years, largely for the purpose of putting together the pre-IPO and IPO funds to launch a global business. And that's then what we did. Went from 1 to 2 to 5 to 100 plus countries in no time flat. So then we can go back to those large customers and say, we're global now. And sure enough, the opportunity was exactly where they'd said it would be. And that no but turned into, oh, great. Yes, here it is. Let's plug and play. And it became, I guess, the secret to Jayride's, those early days was the fact that we were able to offer that sort of global turnkey solution.
Yeah, fantastic. So you listen to your customers, and I think this ties into you never stop validating, right? But who you're using to validate becomes different. In the first instance, you're using the market to validate, but once you've got your customers on, you're listening to your customers and delivering on what their needs are. And you mentioned there you had that goal, you were clear. Once you got that feedback, we need to go international, and then you put the wheels in motion and utilize the listing to help you with that launch pad into a global market.
Yeah, and I'd say, I mean, there's so many. I have another hat I wear. I'm also a non-executive director of an organization named Fishburners, which is a community of startup founders and co-working space based in Sydney, and we get a lot of different founders through that. And it's so commonly the problem, and also the solution is just listening to your customers. Whenever you've got an early stage founder who really wants to know what to do next, what does your customer say you should do next? I mean, maybe it's a current customer, maybe it's your idealized customer. And this is a common story. I mean, my favorite one of these stories relates to, it's actually I guess a classic Australian founder story, was Lynn Fox's story. I'm sure you know the Lynn Fox story.
Yes, I'm
large
a Melbourne
potential
High
customer. Yeah, great.
Melbourne High alumni. There's
large
a
potential
whole
customer.
story about him there, but yeah.
Yeah, large potential customer says, can you do national immediately? And it depends on who you listen to, and the telling, he had either no capacity or very limited capacity to do so. And he says, yep, I can. And he was able to, by, I guess, hearing what his customer said was the deal breaker and then stepping into that problem space to deliver, was able to get his company up.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, again, that's another classic. What does your customer say you need to do? And then that's where to focus.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's absolutely vital. Well, there's a lot of golden nuggets that you've delivered there, Rod, that I'm sure will be super valuable to those listening. Is there anything else that you would add just to wrap it up today? Any other piece of advice you'd give to early stage founders who might be listening?
Yeah, look, the whole world is going to tell you that you can't do it, right? Because they didn't. And so the thing that they know is that it's impossible. But I guess just remember that you're the person who understands the opportunity better than anyone else. That's why you're in the chair. And so long as you believe it can be done, and continue to validate and work through the trickiest problems and prove it again every day, then yeah, just be relentless. Don't give up on it.
Yeah. And I think every founder out there will appreciate that advice and certainly understand that they need to tune out a little of the negativity and hone in on what they know. So that's been amazing talking to you today, Rod. There's some really good ideas and suggestions and insights there. So I really appreciate you coming on and having this chat with me today, and fantastic to see you again after so many years.
Yeah, and you, Rob. It's a pleasure. Good chat.
Thanks, Rod.